1996 yılından bu yana Türkiye'de mimarlık alanındaki en iyi diploma projelerini seçmek üzere düzenlenen ARCHIPRIX Türkiye Mimarlık Öğrencileri Bitirme Projeleri Ulusal Yarışması Ödül Töreni'ne hepiniz hoş geldiniz. İlki Hollanda'da düzenlenen ARCHIPRIX yarışması Doğan Hasol, Şevki Vanlı, Hülya Yürekli ve Ferhan Yürekli'nin kuruculuğunda Yapı Endüstri Merkezi ve Şevki Vanlı Mimarlık Vakfı tarafından Türkiye'de düzenli olarak gerçekleştiriliyor. Amatör düşünceyi teşvik eden, mimarlık öğrencilerinin mesleğe adım attıklarında ilk başarılarını temsil eden ARCHIPRIX yarışmasına bugüne dek Türkiye'nin dört bir yanındaki birçok farklı okuldan 1000'in üzerinde öğrenci katıldı, 100'ün üzerinde öğrenci ise ödül aldı. Mimarlık okullarını ortak bir platformda buluşturarak yapıcı bir rekabet ortamı yaratan ve mimar adaylarının ufkunu genişletmeyi hedefleyen ARCHIPRIX Türkiye, bu anlamda sektörde de beklenen ve takip edilen bir yarışma olarak dikkat çekiyor, genç yeteneklere meslek icrası için şans ortamı yaratıyor. Bugün geçmişte ödül olan isimlerin jüri üyesi olarak yine ARCHIPRIX Türkiye içinde yer almaları, başarılı mimarlık kariyerlerini sürdürdüklerini görmek bizleri cesaretlendiriyor. Jüri değerlendirmesi sonuçlarını tartışmaya açmak adına yapacağımız kolokyuma geçmeden önce bu sene jüri üyeleri arasında yer alan mimarlık dünyasının yükselen yıldızlarından mimar Michel Rojkind, Over-Stimulation başlıklı bir konferans verecek. Kısaca kendisinden bahsetmek istiyorum. Evet, Meksika'dan dünyaya açılan mimar Michel Rojkind aynı zamanda eski bir rock davulcusu ve iflah olmaz bir kaşif. Modern toplumu hedefleyerek fonksiyonun ötesine geçen deneyimler tasarlarken aynı zamanda her projeyi derinlemesine tüm katmanlarıyla ele alan Michel Rojkind, 2002 yılından bu yana kurduğu Rojkind Architectos ile endüstri tasarımından yapı ölçeğine kadar verdiği birçok örnekle mimarlık dünyasına katkıda bulunuyor. Ordos, Marcus, Çernikov başta olmak üzere önemli ödüller kazanmış Michel Rojkind, ödül töreni kapsamında vereceği Over-Stimulation başlıklı konferansta Rojkind Architectos'un objelerin iç yapısal dokuları ve süreçleri üzerindeki çalışmalarından bahsedecek. Rojkind dünyadaki mimarlık mesleğine olan bağlılığı anlayabilmek için kendi şirketinden yola çıkarak çözüm yollarını sizlerle paylaşacak. Şimdi sahneyi kendisine vermek istiyorum. Michel Rojkind, welcome. Herkese iyi konferanslar.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. Hi. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. I will try to speak not as fast as I normally do. Otherwise, I don't even understand myself. But anyway, thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here. It's the second time I visit, and every experience gets better and better and better. And I'm here to talk a little bit, really brief. It's only 25 minutes maximum. But I'm here to talk about a topic of overstimulation, about what we're interested in today that makes our profession what we do. How is architecture shifting today into different elements that we take into consideration? What is the role of architecture today? What is the weight of architecture? Is it just a building by itself? And I start off with a small video.
And the dog was strapped to a headrest with like wires running away from it. Then they clamped like lid locks on the eyes so that I could not shut them, no matter how hard I tried.
The bankruptcy of the U.S. investment bank Lehman Brothers.
He says, I've learned my lesson and I've seen now what I've never seen before. What are we seeing today? What interests us? What really provokes our way of seeing, our way of thinking? How do we react? How are we reacting to the things that are important to us, or the way that we think our profession makes a difference? I talk about stimulation because I'm interested in the things that stimulates us. If we pay attention to the things that we're letting ourselves come into our mind, what stimulates us to react? And how are we reacting? What do I see? And if I was asking this question to me, when I started working, I was seeing tectonics maybe. I was seeing concrete, glass, typical things that they teach us in school. I was seeing the importance of spaces that a lot of people were not interested in as private developers. No, private developers only wanting to sell square meters. And this is a building that we had done. This is a view from the upper floor looking to the hallway, and you have these glass bridges. But this is a residential building in the core where all the neighbors get to meet each other. And we did this in our own way. To make people understand that these are spaces that are important. It doesn't matter who pays for them or if they sell it by the square meter, but it's about the community and the way of gathering a space. I was also interested in about materiality, or understanding that I was not only wanting to look for people in the construction industry to figure out how I was going to produce architecture or how I was going to build it. So by the time we were doing projects like this, we were getting people that were not in the construction industry to work in projects as we did by this time. There were people that were worked in wrecked cars. They were more used to working, banging the steel out of the, making the things good. So we brought them into this house 10 years ago, and we got a great result. I was interested also in not being a firm that was specializing in a particular field, because we did not want to be tagged. I think this is a mistake by society, that we always want to say, what do you do and how do you do it, so I can put a pin and put you on the wall and say, okay, you're the architect that does houses, or you're the architect that does government buildings. This is a government building that we did almost 8 years ago. And again, the idea that we want to design, we don't care what it is. If it's interesting for us to design it, we will design it. We were interested in architecture also as politics. This is a project in Mexico City where our president, who just left term, he asked 36 offices to propose something for the bicentennial festivities. And of course, when the brief came out and he said, well, it's just a monument, we criticized it and we said, well, it's really stupid to do a monument that doesn't work as anything and doesn't function as anything, and it's just a beautiful thing that is there. So our criticism was to put social housing on top of an extension of a park, because this sits near Chapultepec. And we said, well, the government should be thinking about public spaces and should be thinking about social housing, which rarely happens in Mexico. This was our proposal, and of course the media took away all the texts. They didn't want to present it as a criticism, and the only thing that happened is that they put a text saying this looked like a post-nuclear frog. We're also interested in different things. When we talk about context, we talk about not only context, but it has to be situation-based. We talk about materiality, but we talk about digital design and local fabrication. We talk about space, but we question its flexibility. We talk about program, but we really think the important thing today is what adds value besides the program that I'm following. So in this first chapter, I'm talking about Nestle. This is a project that we did, a chocolate museum, and I start with this one because this was a project that we were not asked to do a chocolate museum. The program actually required that we build a space for kids to visit a factory. And when we started doing research, we found out that there was no chocolate museum in Mexico, which was a bit ironic, because the Aztecs invented the chocolate, as we know, as a trading system, and then it was taken away by the Spaniards and so on. But there was no museum. So as an excuse for a company to build something, we thought, okay, brand the company, bring in the kids, but give something in return back to society. We convinced them to do this museum. We worked 2 more projects with them, but this is when we started understanding the importance of what as the power to push a company into a different way of thinking and to create new scenarios where it was not even asked to do. Coming back to the stimulation part, we build our own environment or a context from what makes sense to us. I can be stimulated by something totally different than you. And this is what I'm interested in. What is the things that today catch my mind that I can understand culture in a much broader sense and really be able to interact as an architect? This is another clip. It has a little bit of audio. Don't worry. Well, it's an old film, but actually they're training here. They're training Brad Pitt to be a spy, no? And they're telling him to really be aware, no? That if you want to be a spy, you have to have all your senses in the maximum possible way. And I translate this to architecture, no? And coming back, that you cannot only think of it as the architecture anymore. We're not interested in having this product that is really fine crafted, which of course I care about craft, I care about design, but we're interested in, if we understand the whole scenario, we can come and bring things together to make projects more interesting. For instance, like this department store. This is a project that we were asked to do just the facade of a building. We were just commissioned to do that part. But when we came in with the client, we were asking the client to say, again, what can we do more? What is more besides just having a nice facade? It's a nice facade because we're not, we didn't want to feel as ourselves as doing skins for a building and just doing the outside part. So when we were asking what more can we do, we said, okay, the existing, the environment, as you see here, everything was mostly houses. Houses were bought and then they developed, this is a hospital, this is another high-rise. So now all these houses, they're selling. They want to go out because now the zoning changed and now they're going to be high-rises. But this is a place where you don't even have a park. I mean, this looks like you have a lot of trees, but the sidewalks are very scarce. You cannot even walk in the sidewalks. So we convinced them to put a park on the top of the building, but not a park as we know today that everybody puts trees and thinks it's a sustainable building because they put some green on top. We said, why don't we do something that we have a park, but a park that has program to really have something that ignites that part. When we convinced the client to put a park on top and change the gastronomical area, which they had all over the place, put on the upper part, now they had an excuse for people to go up to a restaurant and have a public space on the top of the building. I can talk about the skin also, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. This is the first project that we digital design, sent the model to Kansas City in the United States, and had every piece, 8,500 different pieces, shipped to Mexico City to fabricate and to do the building. It only took 9 months to build. But when we convinced the client to do the upper part, our commission grew bigger. We were not only hired to do the facade, we were hired to do the atrium, the center space, the experience of going up to the plaza. And now this part of the building has 30% income of the whole income of the store. So because they added a new program, even the store hours changed. Normally they would only stay open until 10 p.m. and weekends now they open until 2 in the morning, and they have people dining there, and sometimes even with kids when they want, if it's a weekend, and the parents have their kids staying up a little bit late. And all the chaotic kind of things that happen in countries like Mexico City. The idea that the skin reacts to the certain conditions of the overpass, the underpass. You rarely can see the facade of the building walking because, as I said, there are no sidewalks. But you always have the experience mainly by car. And this is a video that even the company, when we thanks. When we finished the project, we were the first architects to be present at the opening of the store. This is a 160-year-old company in Mexico that didn't give too much meaning to design. Now they're working with a lot of different architects because now they're interested in design. But the interesting thing was that at the beginning they understood that if we went a little bit further, challenging a little bit of the program, they would have a benefit. And now we're doing 2 more buildings for them. Again, questioning how we can push their ideas and make a company understand that, of course, we can do a building, but if we only care about the design and that's the rest of the story, it's not enough. Today, if the company will come into a new community, they want to know what the company will do for the community, and this is becoming a trend with the company. So I think this is where we want to start seeing architecture. A new building that we're doing for the same company, normally they would do kind of warehouses, no? Where everything was towards the inside of the store, and nobody, or the owners of the store, didn't want the people to look outside because they would say they would get distracted. And so they wanted only to buy on the inside and have the experience of shopping. So we said, why don't we take the experience of shopping also to the outside? So by having they wanted they gave us all these examples of graphic designs on facades, and we said we don't want graphic design, we want space. We're architects, we design space, we design experiences, so we want to create something that, of course, it can look like it's a bit graphical, but what if we make it three-dimensional, and what if we take the inside of the store and put it on the outside as an experience? So this is a little bit of what started to happen when we were doing the first studies. And we said, okay, let's take some percentage of the store to the outside, and what happens if you can have somebody putting on shoes here, and somebody maybe trying a kitchen here, and somebody maybe having food here, and then all these elements connect, and you actually have the experience of going through a facade that is space, and then also a kind of perverse idea. Instead of having the mannequins, you have real people moving up and down and actually making the facade a bit more alive than you would normally do. And this is a project that already started construction in Mexico. That it took a little bit for the client to understand, but once he knew that also this was sellable area, because he's of course, he has the space as for the products or for the cafeteria and stuff, it makes a bit more sense to him also. This is the last project I will be talking about, but this is Cineteca Nacional. And this is one of the most important cultural projects of our president's term. He just left. We did not finish the building. It's still under construction, but a project that would have taken 4 years to build, we tried to do it in 9 months, which was crazy. I always say that architecture, of course, you can be very pushy with political times, but concrete takes its while to be poured and to dry and everything. But one of the interesting things about this project in particular, this is government owned, and this is a film place where Mexicans love going here because it's kind of their project. It's not private owned. It's the cinemas with a cultural calendar and agenda. And this is what you used to have before. People would come in through this small sidewalk and come in this space, and you had these 4 cinemas, and the rest was a parking lot. So at the beginning we were only asked to do more cinemas, and we questioned the identity of the project because we said everything is a parking lot, but nobody really knew the potential of the site. So the first thing that we did is we took the parking lot, we built a new building here to have a front facade to the street, but then did everything as a park. So now you enter, you leave your car, if you come by car, if you come walking, you can either enter here or you can enter on this side. So everything now is a green area. It becomes a campus experience that the client never asked for. A campus, they never asked for a park, they never asked for an open theater, which we created here in the back. They had only asked for 4 new cinemas, that we do this one in 3, we do some office space, and we do some vaults for the archive of the material. But again, by provoking the client or speaking with the client, we went over some of the ideas how to make the project better. And when the 2 axes join, this axis where you have this entrance and this other entrance, we created a rooftop that is covered by glass on top, and then you have some aluminum panels at the bottom to have the experience of light passing by, but you're still sheltered, and you can have a place to wait if it's raining in the city. This is a kind of the relationship with the existing buildings towards the original ones. And the idea that you'll see here in the video was to create here we're entering through the parking lot. The gesture of the new building, which kind of leans forward to the other one as a understanding of the old building and the tradition of the old building. We cleaned it up. The whole experience of going to the new cinemas, you actually have ramps for everybody. It's not that the ramps are for wheelchairs or for ramps are for everybody to come up. You have the entrance to the cinemas on the upper part. A new addition is also a museum, which is done by Mauricio Rocha, which is another colleague, architect friend of ours. So you can now go to watch a movie, but not only stay for movies. You'll have the museum, you'll have different things happening, and of course the open-air cinema, which has become a huge success. It opened already, even though we did not finish by the president's term. It's almost 80% complete. It's been opening by phases, or by different stages. And even things that changed from the original drawings or the renders that you will see now in some photographs, because we learned a lot even in the short time that we could really make the project better. As for instance, this part where you have the outdoor cinema, and before the client, when we told him that we wanted an outdoor cinema, he said, okay, let's make concrete benches. And then when we were working there, we said if we do concrete benches, we will only use it for that. And I think it has to be an extension of the park where people really get to be there. This is one of the pictures recently taken. Of course, these benches are not supposed to be there. But this is the upper part of the where you enter the cinemas. These are some of the ramps. But this is the effect that you're getting now with the project built. These are the ramps coming up. The railings changed from glass that we had before, that we said we thought in the process that it would look much better if we did it in steel railings. The indoor films, which are now the 4 new ones are already, and details like the wood covering the whole theater, and also these spaces that they didn't have before, that you can actually put some musicians in the front, and there's 250 seats cinemas. And the outdoor experience, this was the opening. Of course, there's a lot of details still missing that were not finished when we had the first phase opening, but they were expecting 1,000 people on the open space, and we had 3,000 people. All these people were sitting there like a Woodstock concert. Well, not Woodstock, but the funny thing is that they presented Jaws, the movie, because it was the 100th anniversary from Universal. And by the time they killed the shark, all the people stood up and started clapping, no? Like if it was the first time they had seen a movie. And this was really an exciting moment, no? Because you can do a lot of the architecture. But when I first proposed the idea to the government to put this space, they said, nobody will sit down on the garden. I said, if you give people space, you will be surprised at what people do in the space. So now there's even a funny urban story, and you know when urban stories start moving around, that something you did is right, or something happened in the correct way. They give away, you have of course the garden, but they give away these, they're called petates, which you put on the floor and then you sit on top of it in case you don't want to sit directly on the grass. And they have these elements there where people just grab them and go and sit down. So you see couples coming in and they ask each other, 1 or 2? And I didn't understand why they were asking 1 or 2, so I just went there and started listening, no? And they said, okay. So if it's 1, they put it on the floor and they watch the movie, no? They sit on top of it and they watch the movie. If they ask for 2, they put 1, they get on top, they cover each other, and they kiss all the movie, and they don't watch anything, no? So now you have an urban legend of 1 or 2, depending on the movie you're going to see. And this is another video of a little bit of the construction process. And what I really want to say with this thing of stimulation is that we have to really concentrate more on how we see things. And I relate back to Alex when they're putting the clips on his eyes, no? That they're forcing him to see. Of course, it's an edit, and I put the actual images of what we're seeing today. What are we seeing? Because there's so much information today, and we have to know what makes us react and how we are reacting. And I was saying that I'm more interested today in people that are proactive or reactive rather than people that are really knowledgeable, but they don't do anything. Because I have a lot of friends which, of course, they always say, no, I'm really cultural and I'm really knowledgeable, but they're sitting down reading books all day and not reacting as anything or doing anything, not even teaching, which I say at least teach, no? Because if you teach, you're giving something in return, no? You're giving something back. So this idea of being reactive or active or proactive, but what really makes us do things? Because we think today that the profession is changing, as I said at the beginning, not only by doing a building. Can a building do something for us today? Because if we push society to think that way, if every single building that gets to be done gives a little bit of added value to the city, we will have better cities. And coming from countries like Mexico, which of course is chaotic, as some areas that you see here also that I relate when I was walking the other day around. There's so much chaos going on sometimes that to me chaos is opportunity. I don't see chaos as the end of the story and okay, let's move to a country where things are perfect, as I thought before. When I was a student in school, I said, oh, if I was only born in Switzerland where the system is perfect, or Germany. And now I'm really glad I was born in Mexico, because your brain is trained 24 hours a day. Even by putting your foot outside the sidewalk, you have to be careful not to be run over by a car. You have to have your hand in the wallet so you don't get robbed. So you're really aware. It's a condition that to me is something that I try to bring into architecture in the way we're doing the things we do today. Well, this video goes on, but there is a lot of talk about flux generation or generation flux, and I don't know if you've read about it, but they talk about this, no? That the age of flux is defined more by fluidity than by any new settled paradigm. If there is one consistent pattern, is that there is no pattern. Everybody now is looking to see who's the next financial genius to say, okay, the economy will be this way. And how long will that last? 10 years? 5 years until it collapses, and then some other financial guy says, I have the new financial system, no? Or governments, or different things that are happening in society every day. So if this is our constant way of living, why don't we start understanding that we have to be catalysts in the things that we're doing to really start to understand how to best implement the work that we're doing? So there is no, this idea of let's figure out when a time of stability. What stability? Because at least when people look at me and say, how was Mexico affected by the crisis? I said, what crisis? Because we've always been in crisis, no? It's not something new. So when you've always been in crisis, you're reacting all the time. And it's great because if you're walking and somebody closed the street, you just walk to the other side and you find a way to move. And I've seen some other countries where they block a street and they just sit down and wait for it to open. So if we understand this condition, how our brain is exercising every day in cities like ours, in countries like ours, in conditions that are chaotic, we can find opportunity. So thank you. This was just a brief presentation of the work.
Thank you, Michel. You can stay here because you will be joining us now.
Okay.
Michel Rojkind'e çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ve şimdi sıra kolokyumda.